Okay, this is it. We've reached a turning point here. We're about to move over from Illustrator over into Flash, and I hope you're up for it. You know, there's so many cool things I want to show you over in Flash. We got to get this layout over there. So first of all, just a quick check-in with you. Did you convert all of your main menu items to symbols? I hope so, graphic symbols. And you're all saved up, right? You saved your file. We're ready to roll here. Okay, so what we can do here is there's a couple of different ways that we can actually go about getting Illustrator content over into Flash. As a matter of fact, you could even do something as simple as copying and pasting. So if you have a Flash movie open inside Flash, ready to roll, you could create content here in Illustrator, grab it, copy it, flip back over to Flash, and then just paste it into your movie, right? Definitely an option. The other option that we have is we can export from Illustrator. So let me show you this real quick here. I'm going to head up to Illustrator's File menu and then all the way down to Export. And what I want to do is I want to export for Flash, right? So from the Format menu here, I'm going to go and choose Flash, SWF there. Go ahead and choose that guy. And it wants to save it into my Project Files folder. That's just dandy with me. Go ahead and click on Export. And we get this SWF or SWF options dialog box. Now, have you seen this before? If you haven't seen this before, this is definitely good to know. So this is, I guess you could say this is our second option for getting content out of Illustrator, is exporting it from Illustrator. Let's take a really quick look at some of the options that we have inside the dialog box. First of all, way up at the top here, export as AI file, so an Adobe Illustrator file, to a SWF file. So a direct conversion from Illustrator to Flash, or Illustrator layers to SWF frames, Illustrator layers to SWF files, or Illustrator layers to SWF symbols. So lots of choices in here. And depending on what I'm doing, sometimes I switch between, depending on what it is that I want to pull off, I'll choose the appropriate option, right? So lots of choices in here. Very powerful. The other thing that we can do is we can target our Flash version. So the latest version that's supported here is Flash Player 9. Of course, I can go all the way back to the beginning if I wanted to. Lots of options here as well. Clip to artboard size, compress file, include unused symbols, export your Illustrator text as outlines, if you know about your outline text there. Lots of options in here. We also have an advanced option as well over here on the right-hand side. If you click on that, the dialog box switches and now it gives you raster image options. For example, resolution and compression and all that good stuff, right? Now, again, I'm more making you aware of these options. This is not how we're going to get our Illustrator layout over into Flash. We're going to go with a third method here. If you want to mess around with this, if you want to try it out, go for it. I definitely encourage you to get comfortable with this dialog box. I'm going to flip back over to the dialog box's basic mode there. So yeah, go nuts inside this dialog box. But myself, I'm going to cancel out of this. I'm all saved up here in Illustrator, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to flip over to Flash, which I have running in the background, and instead of exporting from Illustrator, I'm going to import into Flash. Okay, so this is our third option. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go and create a brand new blank Flash movie. It's going to be an ActionScript 3 movie, so from the Create New column here inside the welcome screen, go ahead and click on ActionScript 3 if you're following me along here. There's our brand new file. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to head up to the File menu. This is all Flash now, right? File, down to Import, and then over to Import to Stage. Or there's your keyboard shortcut, Command or Control R if you want. Okay, now inside your Project Files folder, go ahead and look for your FlashLayout.ai file, or whatever you called your Illustrator layout, right? If you can't select them, make sure that all formats is selected from the menu at the bottom there. Grab your Illustrator file, go ahead and click on Open. Okay, now we get this massive dialog box, and at first glance it might seem a little bit complicated, right? Let me show you a couple of cool things here. First of all, right up at the top, I think I mentioned this way back towards the beginning, that we could set up multiple artboards inside Illustrator. So what I can do here inside Flash, when I'm importing an Illustrator file, is I can tell Flash which artboard I want to pull into my Flash movie. So maybe over in Illustrator, I have a few different mock-ups, a few different layout choices that my client can pick from. Maybe he's chosen the one that resides on artboard number 3. Well, then that would be the artboard that I would choose here, right? Pretty cool, a pretty cool option. So you grab your artboard from the top. We only have one artboard. That's why we're not getting any choices there. And then this main area here is probably the most complicated here. Here's what I'm going to suggest you do. Collapse everything. What we're seeing inside this sort of this main window here is all of our Illustrator layers. So in other words, all of our Illustrator layers, which we just set up not too long ago, get preserved when we bring our layout over into Flash, which is awesome. So there they all are. There's background, footer, content, and header, right? I can twist these guys open and see all of the content, or the sublayers as Illustrator calls them, inside each layer. So there's all of my buttons, contact us, blog, tools, rates, seminars, and so on. And there's a linked file. That's the logo, right? Now what's really cool here is I can decide which layers I want to import and which layers I don't want to import, right? So again, maybe I have extra layers in there for some purpose, right? Maybe purposes related to actually building the layout over in Illustrator, which aren't needed here in Flash. It says here right at the top, check Illustrator layers to import. Check Illustrator layers that you want to import. So check off the ones that you want to bring in. So we want to bring them all in, right? And the other thing that I can do is I can check and uncheck the sub layers, or the individual content that resides on each Illustrator layer. Immensely powerful, right? So it's pretty cool stuff. Okay, let me bring everything back to life here. Now, a couple of other neat things that we can do. We could grab individual layers, for example, the header here, and then we get some options over on the right-hand side. Layer import options for header. I can bring it in as a raster graphic or as a bitmap. One important thing to remember about Flash, just a quick side note here, is I always use the term raster to describe a pixel-based image. Flash uses the term bitmap. It's like a tomato thing. So when they say bitmap, in my brain, I'm thinking raster, right? The other thing I can do is I can bring the entire layer in as a movie clip if I wanted to. So I could generate Flash movie clip symbols right on the fly as I'm bringing stuff into Flash, right? And I can do that for the individual layers if I want, content, footer, and so on, or the content that resides on the individual layers. Again, the submenus, right? So these are all symbols here, right? And I'm getting the icon for the type of symbol that I've set up. These are all graphic symbols back in Illustrator, right? That's where we set that up. So I'm getting the graphic symbol icon there. And I could instead convert this content to a raster image or a raster graphic if I wanted to. There's my linked file there, which is the logo. I could flatten the bitmap to maintain the appearance. I could convert them to a movie clip symbol if I wanted to. Okay, pretty cool. All right, let me show you a couple of other things here. I'm going to go into content just for a second. What about text when you're bringing text over? Well, grab one of your pieces of text. Again, note the icons there on the right. So there it is there, the Toronto Mortgage Market 2011 trends. Remember that, right? So we could choose to import that or not import that. While I'm importing it, I can import as editable text, vector outlines, or a raster graphic or a bitmap, and I could convert it to a movie clip. So lots of options there with your text. Of course, we want editable text, right? Now check this out. The linked file, that's the photograph that we put that white stroke on. It has a warning. Notice the warning there? The warning says the object is incompatible with Flash. For maximum compatibility, flatten your bitmap to maintain appearance. And you go, all right, that's kind of interesting. Let's just kind of leave that for now. You'll see how that plays out. Okay, so I think I've pretty much walked you through everything that's available in this sort of this main area here. There's a few extra options down towards the bottom here that I want to throw at you real quick. So convert layers to Flash layers. So this is the Illustrator layers. Convert Illustrator layers to Flash layers, Flash keyframes, or a single Flash layer. Again, very powerful, lots of options. We want to go with Flash layers. So make sure you have Flash layers set there. Place objects at original position. Absolutely. I mean, we sweated our guts out back in Illustrator to create a really nice looking layout, right? I don't want things messed up when I bring it over into Flash. This one I love. Set the stage size in Flash to the same size as your Illustrator artboard. Remember, again, we set that up way, way back at the beginning. We set it up to be 960 by 475, so we definitely want to bring that over. Do we want to import unused symbols? So symbols that are found inside Illustrator's symbols palette that we didn't actually use in our layout. Well, I don't want to. You can if you want. I don't want to. And the last guy here we have is import as a single raster image. Well, again, I guess you could do that if you wanted to. Okay, we're ready to roll here. Now, my dialog box is so huge that it's not even fitting on my screen. Hopefully you can see your OK button. I'm going to hit enter here on my keyboard to go ahead and import my content. You can hit enter as well or click on OK, and that will be just fine. And there's our layout now inside Flash. Our Illustrator layout now sitting inside Flash. Let me collapse some stuff down here so we can get a sort of a better look at what we have here. So there's all of our content. Nothing has moved around in terms of our layout. We're not missing anything. We have all of our symbols are in there. All of our text is in there as well. Now there's lots that I want to show you here inside Flash. I think the next thing that we should do before we go too much further though is we should save our file. So I'm going to go ahead and save this guy, Command S or Control S. I'm going to stick this guy into my project files, and you can call this Flash layout again if you want, or just a layout. I'm going to name it after the Illustrator file. I'm going to call this Flash layout.fla and save this guy up. Okay, great. So that's going to save up. The next thing that I want to do is I want to give you a quick tour of our file now inside Flash.